The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, translated by George Long. Book 12. All those things at which you wish to arrive by a circuitous road, you can have now, if you do not refuse them to yourselves. And this means if you will take no notice of all the past and trust the future to providence, and direct the present only conformably to piety and justice, conformably to piety, that you may be content with the lot which is assigned to you, for nature designed it for you, and you for it, conformably to justice, that you may always speak the truth freely and without disguise, and to do the things which are agreeable to law and according to the worth of each. And let neither another man's wickedness hinder you, nor opinion, nor voice, nor yet the sensations of the poor flesh which is grown about you, for the passive part will look to this. If then, whatever the time may be that you shall be near your departure, neglecting everything else, you shall respect only your ruling faculty and the divinity within you. And if you shall be afraid, not because you have some time left to cease to live, but if you shall fear never to have begun to live according to nature, then you will be a man worthy of the universe which has produced you, and you will cease to be a stranger in your native land, and to wonder at things which daily happen as if they were something unexpected, and to be dependent on this or that. God sees the minds of all men bared on the material vesture in rind and impurities, for with his intellectual part alone he touches the intelligence only which has flowed and has been derived from himself into these very bodies. And if you use yourself to do this, you will rid yourself of such trouble. For he who regards not the poor flesh which envelops him surely will not trouble himself by looking after raiment and dwelling and fame and such likes and show. The things of three which you are composed, a little body, a little breath, and intelligence. Of these the first two are yours so far as it is your duty to take care of them, but the third alone is properly mine. Therefore, if you shall separate from yourself, that is, from your understanding, what others do or say, and whatever you have done or said yourself, and whatever future things trouble you, because they may happen, or whatever in the body which envelops you, or in the breath, which is by nature associated with the body, is attached to you independent of your will, and whatever the external circumfluent vortex surrounds, so that the intellectual power exempt from the things of fate can live pure and free by itself, doing what is just and accepting what happens and saying the truth. If you will separate, I say, from this ruling faculty the things which are attached to it by the impressions of sense, and the things of time to come and of time that is past, and will make yourself like the implorictus sphere, all round and in its joyous rest reposing. And if you shall strive to live only what is really your life, that is the present, then you will be able to pass that portion of life which remains for you up to the time of your death, free from perturbations, nobly and obedient to your own daemon, that is, to the God that is within you. I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but he sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others. If then a god or a wise teacher should present himself to a man and bid him to think nothing and to design nothing which he would not express as soon as he conceived it, he could not endure it for a single day. So much more respect have we to what our neighbors shall think of us than to what we shall think of ourselves. How can it be that the gods, after having arranged all things well and benevolently for mankind, have overlooked this alone, that some men, and very good men, and men who, as we might say, have had most communion with the divinity, and through pious acts and religious observances have been most intimate with the divinity, when they have once died, should never exist again, but should be completely extinguished? But if it is so, be assured that it ought not to have been otherwise. The gods would not have done it, for if it was just, it would also be possible, and if it were according to nature, nature would have had it be so. But because it is not so, if in fact it is not so, be not convinced that it ought not to have been so. For you see even of yourself that this is an inquiry you are disputing with the deity, and we should not dispute with the gods, unless they were most excellent and most just. But if this is so, they would not have allowed anything in the ordering of the universe to be neglected unjustly and irrationally. Practice yourself even in all the things of which you despair of accomplishing. For even the left hand, which is ineffectual for all other things for want of practice, holds the bridle more vigorously than the right hand, for it has been practiced in this. Consider in what condition, both in body and in soul, a man should be when he is overtaken by death. And consider the shortness of life, the boundless abyss of time past and present, the feebleness of all matter. Contemplate the formative principles of things bare of their coverings, the purposes of actions. Consider what pain is, what pleasure is, and death and fame, who is to himself the cause of his uneasiness, how no man is hindered by another, that everything is opinion. In the application of your principles, you must be like the Pancratius, not like the gladiator. For the gladiator lets fall the sword with which he uses and is killed, but the other always has his hand, and needs do nothing else other than to use it. See what things are in themselves, dividing them into matter, form, and purpose. What a power man has to do nothing except what God will approve, and to accept at all that God may give him. With respect to that which happens conformably to nature, we ought to blame neither the gods, for they do nothing either voluntarily or involuntarily, nor men, for they do nothing wrong except involuntarily. Consequently, we should blame nobody. How ridiculous and what a stranger he is who is surprised at anything that happens in life. Either there is a fatal necessity and invincible order, or a kind providence, or a confusion without a purpose and without a director. If then there is an invincible necessity, why do you resist? But if there is a providence which allows itself to be propagated, make itself worthy of the help of the divinity. But if there is a confusion without governor, be content that in such a tempest you have in yourself a certain ruling intelligence. And even if the tempests carry you away, let it carry away the poor flesh, the poor breath, everything else, for the intelligence, at least, it will not carry away. Does the light of the lamp shine without losing its splendor until it is extinguished? And shall the truth which is in you, and justice and temperance, be extinguished before your death? When a man has presented the appearance of having done wrong, say, how then do I know if it is a wrongful act? And even if he has done wrong, how do I know that he has not condemned himself? And so this is like tearing his own face. Consider that he who would not have the bad man do wrong is like the man who would not have a fig tree to bear juice in the figs, and infants to cry, and horses to neigh, and whatever else of necessity must be. For what must a man do who has such a character? If then you are irritable, cure this man's disposition. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. For let your efforts be. In everything, always observe that the thing is which produces for it an appearance, and resolve in it, dividing it into the formal, the material, and the purpose, and the time within which it must end. Perceive at last that you have in you something better and more divine than the things which cause the various affects, and as if it were to pull at you by the strings. What is there now in my mind? Is it fear, or suspicion, or desire, or anything of the kind? First, do nothing inconsiderately, nor without a purpose. Second, make your acts refer to nothing else than to a social end. Consider that before long you will be nobody and nowhere, nor will any of the things exist which you now see, nor any of the things which are now living, for all things are formed by nature to change and to be turned and to perish, in order that other things in continuous succession may exist. Consider that everything is opinion, and opinion is in your power. Take them away then, when you choose, your opinion, and in such a way, like a mariner who has doubled the promontory, you will find calm, everything stable, and a waveless bay. Any one activity, whatever it may be, when it has ceased at its proper time, suffers no evil because it has ceased, nor he who has done this act does he suffer evil for this reason, that the act has ceased. In like a manner then, the whole which consists of all the acts, which is our life, if it ceases at the proper time, suffers no evil, for this reason that it has ceased. Nor he who has terminated this series at the proper time has he been ill dealt with. But the proper time and the limit nature fixes, sometimes as in old age the peculiar nature of man, but always the universal nature, by the changes of whose parts the whole universe continues ever young and perfect. And everything which is useful to the universal is always good and in season. Therefore, the termination of life for every man is no evil, because neither is it shameful, since it is both independent of the will and not opposed to the general interest. But it is good, since it is seasonable and profitable to, and congruent with the universal. For thus too he is moved by the deity, who is moved in the same manner with the deity and moved towards the same things in his mind. These three principles you must have in readiness. In the things which you do nothing either inconsiderately or without otherwise as justice herself would act, but with respect to what may happen to you from without, and consider that it happens either by chance or according to providence, and you must neither blame chance nor accuse providence. Second, consider what every being is from the seed to the time of its receiving a soul, and from the reception of the soul to the giving back of the same, and of what things every being is compounded, and into what things it is resolved. Third, if you should suddenly be raised up from the earth, and should look down on human things, and observe the variety of them, how great it is, and at the same time also see at a glance how great is the number of beings who dwell up around in the air and the aether, consider that it is often as you should be raised up, you would see the same things, sameness of form and shortness of duration. Are these things to be proud of? Cast away opinion. You are saved. Who then hinders you from casting it away? When you are troubled about anything, you have forgotten this, that all things happen according to the universal nature, and forgotten this, that a man's wrongful act is nothing to you. And further, you have forgotten this, that everything which happens always happens so, and will happen so, and now happens so everywhere. Forgotten this too, how close is the kinship between a man and the whole human race. For it is a community, not of a little blood or seed, but of intelligence. And you have forgotten this too, that every man's intelligence is a god, and is efflux of the deity, and forgotten this, that nothing is a man's own, but that his child and his body and his very soul came from the deity. Forgotten this, that everything is opinion, and lastly, you have forgotten that every man lives the present time only, and loses only this. Constantly bring to your recollection those who have complained greatly about anything, those who have been most conspicuous by the great fame or misfortune or enmities or fortunes of any kind. Then think, where are they now? Smoke and ash and a tail, or not even a tail. And let there be present to your mind also everything of this sort. How Fabius Castanelius lived in the country, and Lucius Lupus in his gardens, and Cernicius at Baiae, and Tiberius at Capreae, and Velleius Rufus, and in fine think of the eager pursuit of anything conjoined with pride, and how worthless everything is, after which men violently strain, and how much more philosophical it is for a man in the opportunities presented to him to show. Thus reads the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius.